a case where in Colorado, excuse me, in Colorado, and I'm going to be brief because I already talked about this, but there's a dude who, like some company bought a road right in front of his business and like all the land around his business, which made it impossible for him to sell. They essentially destroyed his livelihood, and he tried everything within his legal means to keep them from doing it, but they have all the money. So they did it anyway. So this man, feeling like he had lost everything, got into a bulldozer and destroyed 12 blocks of the city and then killed himself. And everybody on the news, in comments of videos, web pages, on social media was supporting this man, saying the system had done him wrong and he was very justified in his actions. And I just look at that and I'm like, how can such strong irony be so present and nobody recognize? The system has done this man wrong. His destruction was justified. And I look at that, and then I look at the destruction that's happened with however many civil rights protests, and I go, how can the irony be so strong and you not recognize? And it's literally because minorities are doing it. That makes it different.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even if you just look at, like, what happened in Washington, like, people were like, well, yeah, obviously, because they were mad. No shit, they were mad. You know what I mean? Like, does that justify anything? No. And then, you know, I think that's where most of the anger comes from. Like obviously nobody's asking the police to kill those people who were forcefully entering the Capitol.
No, I wanted the cops to kill them.
No, I just mean, like, you know, if you're not gonna do this to this angry, dangerous group of people who's literally, I mean, personally, I think they're technically domestic terrorists, but that's just me. That's a coup. That's an actual coup. Like, and then people who are peacefully protesting on the streets are fucking, like, attacked and, you know, hosed down and tear gas and everything. You know, how can anyone still deny the fact that there's, like, horrible injustice? How can people still deny that? I genuinely cannot understand.
So, yeah, so I guess that's where my have to be rational all the time sort of thing comes from. Just cause it's like, it isn't fair. And, I'm not gonna, when people tell me, oh, but that's not fair, I'm like, sometimes I want to be like, you're an idiot. Just cause, duh. It hasn't been fair for centuries. You think because it's not fair that it's not, like, I live in a very, when I consider situations like that, I go, it's not a matter, people always say, oh, it shouldn't be that way. I'm like, you shouldn't look at things as what it should and shouldn't be. You have to look at things as what they are and what they aren't. And then you have to work how it is like that. So just because it shouldn't be that way doesn't mean it isn't. It is that way.
And so now how do you deal with how
do you deal with it, right? People go, I don't have to do this because it shouldn't be that way. Oh, no. I agree with you. It shouldn't, but it is. What are you going to do now?
The rational bit coming in again. Once again, emotions are irrational. Sometimes you just want to say, well, why should I? You know, but also I just wanted to put in one little bit, that while I was talking about white privilege, I do want to acknowledge that I am, like, white passing, so I do also benefit from a lot of white privilege. Just put it out there. I always feel guilty when I talk about this. No, but it's true. It's true, because I can't be like, yes, you know, let's go POC, when I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm half Asian, but I'm also, like, I can pass as someone who's white. So I do benefit a lot from that. Just wanted to put that out there, you know, acknowledging it, which is a big part. You have to acknowledge this, you know? Sorry, I cut it off at a really random time.
No, I mean, fair enough if you wanted to put that in there. I think I might segue a little bit. I think that's a little bit, what's been a culture shock for me, and is like this BIPOC versus non-BIPOC new, like, dichotomy that goes on. It's so interesting for me, where it's like, because, okay, like, I think I acknowledged this before, like, there's definitely a white privilege in the sense that, you know, the systems in the Western world were designed with them in mind and not anybody else, right? But, like, I make this very clear when there's conversations regarding, like, black people. I can't speak for black Americans as a whole. My parents made a very big deal to teach me financial literacy and to make sure, you know, when we moved abroad that I was pretty well set financially. So like, I can't even speak from the I'm not financially well off place because I am. So there's like, and then because I didn't grow up here, a lot of the pain and trauma that Black people feel here, whenever I get invited into those spaces, I feel like an imposter because I don't also have a voice there. I view the pain and trauma from a second hand on TV or like from being told about it by other Black people, but I've actually never lived it in that sense, you know? So like when I get into these spaces where it's BIPOC versus non-BIPOC, I feel really weird because I'm like, I might, you know, being back here, I'm going to sort of experience similar things as people who as other like people of color, but I didn't have that full experience. And then like speaking, I made a distinction a while ago, the difference between like white privilege and personal privilege, which is why when you like, and I bring this up because a lot of times when you tell, white people, most white people, not your extreme liberal white people, but like your everyday white person, that they have white privilege, they're going to be like, no, I absolutely do not. Let me tell you all the hard things about my life and how the government has screwed me over. Yeah. Because like there's a distinction between like systematic white privileges and then the personal privilege that an individual can have. So when we get into spaces sometimes where people talk about white privilege and they bring up certain things, I'm like, that's me, but I'm Black.
Yeah, I think that is definitely, you're completely right. Like, I think that was like the biggest thing of like explaining white privilege. Like, it's not about your like your personal in your own life hardship. It's about, you know, like the how you are in a social climate, you know, like, yeah, I mean, we had arguments with people about this. I don't know about you. Were we a part of the same argument?
There was a time over quarantine where we were on a call, like as a group talking about, yeah.
So I think so.
And I decided to play mediator.
Yeah, it's, I think it's just because nobody wants to be held accountable. Do you know what I mean?
Well, there's that.
When you say to someone, you have to acknowledge your white privilege, they often would go like, well, yeah, but I'm not part of the problem, you know? And that's why I was saying, like, acknowledging it is a big part, because then you're acknowledging the fact that there is a systemic injustice. And when you acknowledge that, yes, being white does have certain privileges over other people, you are essentially trying to address the issue. I mean, it's like the very minimal part. It's not like going to solve the big issue, but at least you are recognizing it, you know?
Yep. Yeah, it is an interesting one. Trying to get people to see that difference is hard.
Yeah. Cause
especially
I mean,
if their life sucked.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people didn't have like financial backing, then they didn't, you know, grow up in a really comfortable or safe environment. And so when you go like, yeah, you have privilege over other people, they're like, where, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I mean, yeah, but if I went up to a white person and said, I have white privilege, I'm gonna be real. I am probably, and this is a blessing, right? I'm not trying to say it to brag. I am very blessed and very thankful for all the hardships that my family had to go through so I could be here. But if I went up to your average working class white person, and even like your average middle class white person, and said you have white privilege, I'm probably better off than they are. You know how ridiculous that would sound coming from me?
Yeah, like that's the thing, right? Like no, they can't, like people refuse to separate the, you know, like how they live and what they live, if that makes any sense.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's actually very good phrasing.
Oh man, look at that. English lit, just throwing that in there. Yeah, cause I mean, for the longest time, I refused to acknowledge that I had white privilege. I mean, white passing privilege. Cause, I mean, like I told you, I used to get mad when people call me white. I was like, you know, I'm not. So
I'm a minority and I want you to treat me as such.
Yeah, okay, but it's kind of like, yeah, okay, I know I look white, but like, why are you're basically dismissing my heritage. You're going like, yeah, okay, you're Chinese, but like, you're white, you know? And I was like, no, don't say that. I think it's because I just didn't want to acknowledge the fact that I do have privilege, and acknowledging the fact that I didn't have the same experience as a lot of people, because that would diminish my cultural holding over China. Like, I am Chinese, and if I didn't have the same experience as other people, then I'm less Chinese, you know? Which is not right. Obviously, it's not right. So yeah, I mean, personally, it took me, like, I don't think it took me so long, but it's just because I never really thought about it until I think it might have been my sister who was like, well, you know, we also do technically have white privilege. And I was like, I never considered that. Yeah. So which is why the topic is interesting, because, well, I mean, also about that, like, you know, white passing and such. Like, I don't know how I feel about that topic. Because, like, what is it about me that, like, my accent, the way I look, it just gave me different values despite my culture and where I grew up with and who I was raised by? You know? Like, that's a weird topic, isn't it?
That is really weird.
Because do you remember once I said to you, and I don't think it was the best analogy, and I don't, like, now I think back and I'm like, that wasn't probably the right thing to say. I was like, why do people get to call me white just because my skin color isn't distinctive? Like, you wouldn't call someone who is half black and half white because they're mixed race. But they were okay with calling me white because I'm half Asian and half Italian.
Well, depending on where you go in the world, being Asian but having a light complexion kind of makes you white, depending on where you are.
Yeah, so. And then like, you know, now I do realize the hole in that argument, because yeah, I mean, skin color does play a big part in it. If you can pass off as white, you are considered with more privilege and, you know, everything. And I think also because white privilege is something that's also super evident in China. I don't know if people, I mean, listening to this have been to China, but if you look white, you get a lot of privileges. I mean, even just from going out, like when we were used to go to clubs, you would get everything for free.
I couldn't get into this club for free once, and I was pissed because all my friends got in, but I had to pay. That may have been a weird, I don't know. That was so, and oh my God, there was another time I went to the same club, and oh my God, a friend of mine got drunk, and I had to take care of her, and I got really like, okay, well no, this has nothing to do with me being black. I think it's just because I'm a dude. I had really dirty looks from people. I'm like, I'm not gonna do anything to her. Like, please leave me alone.
I mean, once, so like the friends I were talking about who grew up in Italy but are Chinese, she came to, Beijing like 2 summers ago, which is so weird because I just don't feel like last summer happened. But yeah, 2 summers ago, it doesn't exist. She was here and we went clubbing. So Julia and I, my sister, we got in for free. And when my friends tried to get with us, they were like, yeah, show us your ID. And my friend was like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on? And I was like, I didn't think about that. Do you know what I mean? And then I was like, shit, like.
Were those guys black?
Sorry?
Were those friends black?
No. They're like the Chinese girls who grew up in Italy.
Oh, they're just Chinese.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. And then obviously you have in Beijing.
That's
like,
so tough.
At 1/3, dude. Literally.
Really?
Like,
1/3 did that?
Yeah.
Wow.
At 1/3. So my friends and I, like, we went in and then like we were like, you know, the sponsor was taking us, right? And then they would just stop my friend. They were like, show us your ID. And I was like, no, we're together. And they're like, yeah, but still. I was like, what? Like, what is even going on?
I've never been stopped at 1/3, thankfully.
It was really weird. I mean, we were just going in. So I think they were checking like if she's old enough or whatever. Right. But like they didn't check ours. And also, I mean, there's a very like classic that everyone would take photos of you.
Yeah.
It's true. They do. And
I've been put in a group chat before and I caught it at the last second and I was like, that's okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's weird. Dude, the amount I mean, also cause like I do work in my mom's restaurant sometimes, and the amount of times parents would just shove a kid in my arm and be like, take a photo with this nice lady. I'm like, who? Who is this child that I'm holding? What is going on? Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I've also literally, I was like sitting with my sister, we were drinking coffee, and this girl was just like, hey, can I take some photos of you two? And I was like, yes.
Bro, just act like you're TikTok famous or something.
Oh man, it's weird, dude.
I'm a celebrity. You actually have to pay a premium.
Yeah.